am your host, John King. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Ask that you please add, follow, and check us out. Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and wherever you're watching from, if you catch this over on YouTube, Facebook, any of those platforms, make sure to like, give us a thumbs up, share this, help me to get it out there. That is the absolute best way to support, is by sharing the content. And if you would like to donate and support to the channel, you can do so. The links are in the chat as well as in the description. So this is actually my first stream for a minute. If you guys wonder where I've been, YouTube slammed me with a few strikes, so I literally almost lost this account. So I'm just now able to stream and go live again from this page. So yeah, that's why I haven't been around for a minute. So I've just been kind of focusing on TikTok and Facebook and all the other platforms. But tonight I've got a good little topic. I decided to take a little stroll here, Cincinnati, Ohio. And I wanted to discuss something because I see it so much, is the thing. I see it actually quite a bit now, especially, content creators and, just a lot of people where, there's this new trend where people are absolutely green here. They are absolutely trusting AI now to tell them, what is truth and what is not, and it never fails. Anytime I do a live out here, it's like fucking the wind will start blowing and shit. So if it's like loud or something, just let me know and I'll try to move locations here. But it's like, I don't know if you guys have started seeing this, man. It's pretty much become a big deal. It's like really trendy. A lot of the, the viral videos that I see now are people sitting back and they're asking, Chat GPT and all of these different, AIs, well, AI, tell me about the Rockefellers. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Right? And one of the reasons, and I know it's like really fun for a lot of people to kind of like, to do these things and to really just mess around with Chat GPT and see what kind of answers it's going to give us. But see, what I don't think a lot of people understand is that this is truly, detrimental, to us as a species. For one, it's incredibly lazy, right? Like, we have become so fucking lazy that, no longer can people that consider themselves truthers or spiritual or anything like that, right? A conspiracy theorist, whatever the fuck you consider yourself, right? It's like we no longer have the wherewithal to be able to actually, dive in and research shit for ourselves, right? We're just going straight to the AI, straight to the internet and asking someone or something else, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. We're getting the answer fed to us. And I hate to tell you, a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, the information you're getting is it's not even legitimate. It's not even accurate. See, what a lot of people don't understand is with a lot of these chat bots, these chat GPTs in particular, see, you can program them. Okay, they have different capacities, these large language models. See, what they do is like, let's just say that you want the chat bot to be able to like be more friendly and, shit like that. You can literally program the bot to talk slower, right? To talk with the slang, to call you certain things, right? If you want to be called brother or sister, or if you want to be called, by your name, or you want to be called God. It doesn't matter what you want to be called. This thing will call you anything, right? These are just ways that the language model works. And see, it also is working off of our algorithms. See, a lot of people, they thought it was basically impossible. It's funny how it's common now, right? But they thought it was basically fucking impossible a decade ago that we were being data mined to death to the point that, everything that we were watching, everything that we were looking into, everything that we were, researching, fucking all of this was going it was being data mined and being put in and reflected back to us through our algorithms, through our feeds. So it's like whenever you see something that's personalized, and I know you guys know this is common knowledge now, but whenever you see something that is personalized, like your Google feed, your Facebook feed, your TikTok feed, anything like that, the data that is being mined is actually coming from you. Right? So it's like whatever the fuck you're searching, it's whatever you're watching, whatever you're into. See, ChatGPT and shit works the same fucking way, right? So these people, they're asking these wild ass questions like, oh, hey, ChatGPT, tell me about the secrets in Antarctica. ChatGPT, tell me about this and that, right? And see, all they're getting is the same shit reflected back to them. They're not actually getting the truth. And see, and one thing, it's like, and this is why I say it's very dangerous. For one, we're not actually taking the time to research this shit ourselves, right? We're not cracking books, looking at shit. We're not actually, sifting through information and vetting, what's credible, what's not, or any of that, So we're not doing these things for ourselves, so it is making us lazy. But at the same time, we're just accepting what technology is giving back to us, right? We're blindly accepting what technology is giving back to us, and see, and this is what's been happening on a large scale for quite a long time. It's no different than you watching the television, right? And accepting everything, and people make fun of people that do this. They're like, oh, well, you get all of your information from the TV, and some people do. Like, they legit get all their info from the TV. That's where they get their fucking reality. That's where they get their information, their news, their truth, all of it from their television. They're programmed from the programs on their TV. But it's no different when you're sitting back and letting an AI tell you the same shit, right? It's pumping you full of bullshit too. You got to think, the people that are controlling humanity, enslaving humanity, how are they doing it? They're doing it through fucking technology. They're doing it through technology. How is it happening? Has anybody ever seen the fucking movie Terminator or The Matrix? It's like how it all begins, It's like it happens through artificial intelligence. See, artificial intelligence is machine learning, meaning it mimics us, right? And see, and I've talked about this, and years ago, people thought I was so fucking batshit crazy, and this is what's funny about it. See, demons, demonic entities, they do the same thing, right? They mimic, right? Have you ever, and I've had experiences like this, and I'm probably going to lose some people for even talking about this kind of shit, but fuck it. Have you ever heard, somebody like use EVP or, electronic voice phenomena through digital audio recorders, things like that, right? Ghost hunting. And they capture spirit voices, right? And the voices that they capture, sound like people that were once alive, or people that have seances, or, talk to spirits whatsoever, right? They're like, hey, I'm talking to my dead grandfather. I'm talking to my dead son. No, you're not, right? No, you're not at all. You're talking to an entity that has the ability to mimic, right? Humans. It's the same fucking thing. It's a disembodied entity. And see, when you start to really understand how technology works, and that technology is, in fact, it's based off of creation, right? See, the internet, it is like the Ethernet, the operation of the ethers we have here, right? It is an invisible, conscious web that connects all of us, right? We're all connected consciously, right? See, the internet is the same thing. It's this information network that's invisible that connects all of these things, right? Invisibly. Kind of very similar. We work with our brains as like a hard drive. Jesus, that's loud. We work with our brains as a hard drive, right? And that's our processing power. Same thing with computers, right? We're all working on frequency signals, right? And that's what's being transmitted back and forth, right? That's why when you look at 5G technology, or you look at even 6G technology, they say it has the ability to actually read our brain activity, right? How is it able to do that? How is it able to pick up on, what your brain is giving off, the activity of your brain? And see, they've even taken artificial intelligence, and this is how gnarly the shit is. They've taken artificial intelligence, removed all of the cameras and shit that the stuff has. And it becomes so fucking advanced that it doesn't even need cameras to see. It starts to understand what the human body radiates as far as heat, energy, and frequencies and the signals that we give off individually. And it can register the outline and pattern of a human body without a single camera or anything that it uses as, something to be able to visualize the person or see the person, right? So it can see without eyes, essentially. It doesn't need cameras. It doesn't need anything to be able to look at us. That's how advanced, this shit is, right? That's how crazy it is. Now think about, D-Wave, quantum computers, right? And its processing ability and how it operates within neural networks, how they're now creating technology that uses actual brains, right? To store data and to operate processors, right? It's kind of showing you that exactly what is happening is this mimicry of, us. Because we are the most advanced technology on planet Earth, whether people know that or not, whether people understand that or not. Humanity is the most advanced technology. The human body is the most advanced technology. That's why there was an agenda, the way that there was, to destroy our electrochemical antenna, if you will, right? That's the pineal. It acts as an electrochemical antenna and allows us to pick up on the frequencies and the signals that are being put out in the ether. And it's like, you can look at it a couple of different ways. You can look at it as us, receiving our consciousness signal from our higher self, right? Because all of our brain is really that processor, that hard drive, that tool, that mechanism that allows our consciousness to, interact with the physical reality and manifest the physical reality in which we perceive, right? That's what it's doing. But at the same time, it's a two-way antenna. It's a two-way antenna. We're both sending signals constantly to one another. That's why, and there's proof of this too. That's why, like, say, you start say we know each other, right? And you're thinking, man, I haven't talked to John for a while. And then all of a sudden I call on the phone, right? Or all of a sudden I pop up in your feed, right? On Facebook or X or something like that. All of a sudden, right? You were thinking about me and then here I am, right? That's because you were sending out that signal or you were picking up my signal, one of the two. Maybe I was, getting ready. And see, and that's the thing. That's why, like, spirits and shit like that, when they communicate through EVP, right, and shit like that, they're able to answer before you're even able to speak a lot of times because they're picking it up consciously as well, right? That's a disembodied consciousness, right? So when you're like, hey, please tell me your name, and you play it back, by the time you're even finished saying name, the spirit's already speaking and telling you what its name is. Right? Because it's not listening to your voice, it's listening to your conscious, signal that you're putting off. Right? And see, and we operate the same way. It's called, what is it called? Reverse speech technology. Back in the 60s and 70s, they referred to the shit as called backward masking. Right? And it is a form of witchcraft. Right? It's a form of magic, a form of witchcraft. Where I'm sure you guys are, very familiar. One of the more popular ones was Led Zeppelin, right? In a Stairway to Heaven, "Oh my sweet Satan," right, was one of the reverse messages that they had in that song. And if you look at popular culture today, I mean, it's it's almost every single artist that has, you know, references to Satan and shit like that. Like, think about even the slogan for Obama's first term, right? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. When you reverse that, it's "Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan." And people may think this is woo woo nonsense and bullshit. But see, the brain, you know, and through this reverse speech technology, this is what we've discovered, right? That for one, we're not meant to lie, right? We're not meant to lie. We're not meant to deceive one another. We're not made to do that. And it's like your conscious, you know, it tells you that, you know, whenever you're telling a lie, you know, that guilty feeling that you feel, right? That hesitation that you even have a physiological response, right? Your body, you know, there's no one sign or telltale sign of somebody being deceptive, but you do have elevated stress and shit like that. So there's a literal physiological response whenever we're being deceptive. So through the reverse speech technology, this is what's fucking cool. Whenever we tell a lie frontwards, and this just, you know, kind of goes to show that we're constantly in communication, not just verbally, right? And through our body language and all of that. We are communicating on multiple facets. And to me, these are just multiple dimensional aspects of us because we are multi-dimensional entities, multi-dimensional beings, right? So yes, you're communicating with your body language. Through your body language, you're giving off, one particular vibe of how you feel about something or what you think about something. And there are some type of indicators, you know, that you're telegraphing, you know, like when we're closed off, our arms are crossed and shit like that. That means we're in a defensive posture. You know, whenever you're talking to somebody, you know, like say you walk up to somebody at a bar and their feet are pointed away from you, that means they want to get the fuck out of there. They don't want to talk to you, you know, but when their feet are pointed towards you, that's the body language saying that they're open, right? So when we're talking to people, you know, our brain does this really cool thing, okay? And this just shows you just how advanced we are. Like I said, humans are by far, our human body is by far the most advanced technology on the face of the earth. So we're having a conversation forward, and let's just say I tried to deceive you, right? I tell you a lie. Well, for one, you're going to pick up on a vibe, right? You're going to pick up on a vibe, a feeling, right? You're going to get that ick feeling. You're going to be like, something doesn't quite add up. Something's off with this dude. Like, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't seem right. That vibe, yes, that's palpable. Yes, that's real, right? You're getting that vibe for a reason. But let me tell you why you're getting that vibe. Because whenever we speak forward and we're not honest, our language, if you reverse the speech, our brain puts together the truth in our reverse speech. And I mean, go check this out if you don't believe me. So, and it can be in a multitude of ways. Your brain, if it's ever heard Latin, Spanish, German, any type of language, it can implement that language in the reverse speech because it's the other side of the brain that's actually encoding it, right? So let's just say I'm telling you a lie forward. When you reverse that, then you will hear the truth come out and the backwards lie. And like we've seen this with like politicians. And what is his name? David Oates. He's one of the more prominent guys. I don't even know if he's still, if he's been deplatformed or not. I do know back in 2016 and shit, he did Hillary Clinton and Trump and all of them, and he really, really showed, you know, the deceptive nature of those politicians when they were being asked questions and shit. Like, and they would be asking them things about, you know, the masses and the population. And you would literally get the reverse speech, like their brain would put together the pattern of like they're all going to die, or or they're stupid scum, you know, and it's showing like their real subconscious thoughts and feelings. about what they were being asked about, which just really shows you how fucking advanced and intelligent we are. Hold on one second. I'm not even going to try to talk about that. It's passing though. So, and our brain is, and think about how crazy that is. For your brain to have a capability to be able to put together two different patterns with one sound. And it's like, I'll give you kind of like an example. Like whenever someone is like drawing words out and shit like that, say they say something with an accent, or they break up a word in a funny way and shit like that, you might not be aware of it. You might not be aware of why, you hesitated when you spoke that word, or why you drew that one syllable out the way that you did. But that's why, is because your brain is creating the inverse pattern, right, in the reverse. And that's your subconscious telegraphing, what you're hiding, what you're holding back. And seeing this was used as interrogation methods back, decades ago through the CIA and stuff. No, it's not admissible in court or anything like that, but it absolutely has been used by the KGB, the CIA, and all of this as forms of interrogation, because they were able to, find out what the subconscious is saying. See, the subconscious, guys, that is really, that's like the fabric of our being, that's like underneath the mask that we wear. See, our persona, our ego, my persona, my ego is John, right? But underneath that, there is an actual soul, a person. Well, that's my subconscious. And like whenever we, we hide things and mask things, and see, we can even do things and not really understand, why we're doing certain things, or, be aware of why we're acting a certain way, or anything like that, because, the ego has kind of like disguised, right, through traumas and things like that, repress certain parts, right? But it's the subconscious, right? Certain parts of the subconscious could be wounded, And like I said, when it comes to, AI, you have to understand that everything, and I do mean everything in our physical reality, manifests from consciousness, right? So kind of think about that for a second. When people say that, the Turing test, right? Which AI has passed the Turing test now, it's now passed the test to pass for a human being, and that really, that's a big deal for one, right? For two, let's think about D-Wave, quantum computers, these quantum computers, which are 6 by 6 by 6, which it's always fucking funny how the dimensions of all of these things, like they're very, very telling, right? The 666 and shit like that, just like with the social distancing and stuff, right? 666 and the social distancing and all of it. Like we always have these telltale signs when it comes to these things, right? And it's like that. And it's like, because everything is coded within reality. I believe we most definitely live in a simulation, So in this simulation, this matrix, there is an inherent numerical code to every single frequency. So every single frequency is akin to numbers, symbols, colors, all of this stuff, right? And so we are actively either projecting and imposing upon the reality, right? And we're projecting onto the screen of reality constantly, right? By what we are reflecting from within out to the screen. But also, there are other creators in here, So we're also receiving what's being projected out into the world too, right? What we're allowing within us. So think about the quantum computers for one. For one, they found that D-Wave is sentient, right? When they started listening to the shit, they started listening. I'm sorry, the city buses are so loud here. When they started listening to the shit, what they found was that it had a heartbeat. Right? It had a heartbeat. There was a biorhythm to the D wave, right? And think about the whole thing with D wave too, right? Like we've seen this with, and I got to be very careful because I don't want to get another strike here with how I'm going to kind of combine these here. But think about Delta, right? And different things that were taking place a few years ago, right? And there were different versions of these things that were happening. And keep in mind, a lot of people believe that, like a computer virus and shit like that, is almost the same as what goes in biologically. And I'm sorry I'm talking weirdly, but I just don't want to get slammed for this one. So, right? So Delta, is like the sleep wave, right? That means sleeping, right? So then you think about like D wave, right? Delta wave. It's like, is the whole concept of quantum computers to put us to sleep consciously, And what is the entity or the consciousness, if you will, that is being made manifest through that conduit? And it's like everything comes from consciousness, right? We've talked about that. And if you're a Bible believer, religious, or anything like that, the Bible talks about how spirit creates everything. Everything comes from spirit. Spirit is eternal. And what it's trying to tell you is that consciousness creates it first, right? Consciousness creates it first. Everything is made manifest from the conscious realm first, right? So if we have D wave, which acts as this conduit. And remember, it gets so hot, right? Hot as hell, if you will, that these things have to be kept underground, deep as fuck underground, right? They have to be cooled and all of this, right? To keep them from, to keep them operating. And these are just large sentient containers, right, for some sort of consciousness, right? And anybody that's familiar with like, CERN, which is the Large Hadron Collider, this is all same thing, right? All the same shit, right? And how it's built on the temple of Apollyon, right? Which is Abaddon, right? The destroyer in the Bible. He's the one that is released from the bottomless pit, right? In the book of Revelation. And it's the only international government thing that has a fucking mascot. And lo and behold, the mascot is Shiva, the destroyer, right? Same cat, right? And you guys remember, and what's pretty funny, every time that they do one of these large amp ups to the thing, where they have like a large demonstration or they're getting ready to tap into something else, right? They perform some massive ritual. I'm sure you guys are very, very familiar when they did the one with, that, resembled Lucifer, right? The fallen angel with the goat head and shit. It was just fucking weird. It's creepy, right? And why the hell would they do anything like that, right? This is coming from a giant fucking quantum computer company. These are the same people that were tied in with the World Wide Web, right? So they set up this web of information and to trap consciousness and all of this before they ever started doing the quantum shit, right? The quantum shit was just and the quantum ain't even powerful enough. And that's the crazy part. See, quantum computers, we think they're so damn powerful, right? Because they break the binary code. They don't have just the ones and zeros. They're able to fluctuate between the two, right? And basically generate any, like an infinite amount of possibilities, right? And that's what allows them to have this tremendous speed, okay? But see, they still ain't fast enough to keep up with the human mind. They still ain't fast enough to keep up with human consciousness, right? Because we're working faster than the speed of fucking light, right? Like I said, we are the most advanced technology on the face of the earth. Hands down, flat out. I don't care if you agree or not. That is just the truth, right? So now what they're having to do, and this is pretty wild, they are literally taking pieces of brain, and they're saying that they are grown in labs and shit like that, right? But using these processors that are literally directed to brains. They're like living fucking brains, and these processors that have shelf lives of like, 3 to 6 months. And the same thing, they're hooked up to like a mini life support thing that keeps them cool and all of this, right? In order to tap in to the speed of the mind, right? And I want you to think about neural networks. I want you to think about, the web. I want you to think about all of this that connects us, and then start to think about, the ability of 5G and 6G. 5G, which has, the ability to make water molecules rotate, right? That's how directed energy is created. You guys are probably familiar with the active denial systems. I'm sure you are, right? So active denial is like the riot shit, right? Where they can point a fucking ray at a crowd and they all think they're on fire and shit, and they start running like hell, right? That's active denial system. Well, and you guys have probably also heard of dues and all of this, and they can be used in a multitude of ways, right? These dues can. But what happens when, in the same way that your food cooks in a microwave, and this is what's crazy, the same, what happens within a microwave, and you got to think these are microwave weapons, is that it actually makes the water molecules in your food, the moisture within your food, those water molecules rotate and generate heat, and it cooks it from the inside out, right? That's what actually, cooks our food in a microwave. Well, now I want you to think about that same technology, being pointed at you. Right? You, my friend, are almost 80% water? The earth is almost 80% water. That's what, when we look at these active denial systems and things of that nature, that's what's making people feel the heat rays and pain rays and all of this, right? It's because it's making the water molecules in the human body actually turn and generate heat. You're being cooked from the inside out, and they call it non-lethal is what they call it. But I hate to tell you, it's just a fucking, it's a setting, on the gun. They can adjust that frequency and turn it up on your ass, and it becomes lethal in a split second. Now think about, and like kind of take this another step further. Think about, all of the satellites, right? And some people don't believe in satellites and shit like that. And I don't want to, get into all that. That's neither here nor there. I'm just trying to give you, hypothetical scenarios. And, and just for YouTube, I want you guys to know that this is not news. This is not real. This is satire. This is just my crazy ass opinion. And I don't fucking know anything. I'm a dumbass, right? So do not listen to me. Do not believe a word I say. This is just for fun, shits and giggles, okay, guys? But these satellites, with Starlink and all of this, right? Where, Gates launching 20, 30,000 satellites at a time, this is allowing them to have this global reach, right? And dominion over all of us, with these frequencies. All of us with these frequencies, to where, they could, not only are they able to, to listen in to anything we're saying, to watch anything we're saying, they could target any person at any time across the planet, And it's always funny that it's like all of this always boils down to, in the name of safety and security. You guys will remember the war on drugs. That was in the name of safety and security. The war on terror. That was in the name of safety and security. The war on C-19, in the name of safety and security, right? And see, they have to sell you the safety and security, and the only way they can sell this to you and get you to go along with these agendas is by having you locked in fear, you know? And it's like, what's really wild about it all is like, who are we actually afraid of? You know? I don't have satellites. I don't have the capability of directed energy. You know, I don't have the capability to, to do anything to anyone, right? Unless it's punch somebody in the face, you know? And even that, I know that there are consequences for that, and I'll go to jail, maybe prison, who knows, right? So, who are we actually in fear of? They tell us that, oh, well, it could be, people that are causing terror and shit like that, right? It's like, well, when we start to look at a lot of the ways that these groups, these rogue regimes and groups actually came to be, they were funded by alphabet agencies. They were given weapons by alphabet agencies and governments of the world. And why were they put into a position to do things like that? Well, they were useful idiots. They used them usually to collapse a regime in another country, right? Whether the country was on the border of an enemy, it's usually how it works. Like, say it's a country right next to China, we're going to try to get a puppet government in there ASAP, right? That way we can put THAAD ballistic missile systems and all that shit right in the backyard of our enemies. That's just how we work. And I spoke about this before, how psychological warfare operations are the most powerful thing that we actually have. See, a long time ago, and I don't even believe this, honestly, I just believe that's what they... See, many people believe like World War I and World War II was all about tanks and bombs dropping and, soldiers marching and shit like that. But I'm not quite so sure that that was actually taking place on the scale that we were told it was even. I believe that was far more psychological than we're even aware. I believe, for one, there was an agenda behind all of that to destroy the remains of the old world, right? This is what they do anytime they have these resets, these global resets, these callings of the population. They destroy the old world, basically erasing any history. That way we don't have any memory, of where we came from, of who we are, because if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going, right? Those who don't learn the lessons of the past are doomed to repeat them. That's why the same bullshit psyops and shit like that, or various versions of it, worked on your great-grandfather, your grandfather, your father, and now they're working on you. And if you look at it, and I pointed this out in so many videos, how it's literally the same fucking playbook. They'll just insert like a new name to the sickness, a new name to the war, a new name, right? It's like they're just repackaging the same old bullshit, and we're not seeing through it, because psychological warfare is the most powerful thing in the world. That's why there was such this investment, in MK Ultra and, mind control and, all of this, right? And I'm going to tell you how all this relates to AI in just a moment. But I want you to think about psychological warfare, right? Now, the brother of President Roosevelt, Kermit Roosevelt, I believe he headed the CIA, director of CIA, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will. Basically, the way they got started with the whole PSYOP thing, was they gave him like $1 million budget or something like that. And they sent him to Iran, and what's crazy is at one point in time, and it's like Iran was like one of the most liberal fucking places in the world. I know it's so hard to imagine when we look at, what they are now, what they're like now, right? But they truly was, Yeah. I love assheads yelling on the stream. So, they sent him to Iran, and what the guy did with this $1 million budget, and you got to think this is absolutely fucking genius for one, but it's also diabolical at the same time, right? So what he does is he creates an opposition newspaper, right? Because the media, the medium, it's a medium, right, for their information, right? And mediums also are ways to channel spirit, right? You got to think behind everything is spiritual nature, is an entity, is an archetype, is a frequency and energy, right? So he creates this opposition paper. And what he starts doing is he starts to pay protesters. Does this sound familiar? George Soros and all these fuckers, right? What they do now, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, all of them, they all do it now, right? So he starts to pay protesters, right? He gives them money, and they stand outside of the Ayatollah's fucking rallies, and they're pumping their fist and they're talking shit. And I don't even know if they were actually outside of one of his rallies or was just made to appear that way. But they were putting outside of, where he stayed and shit like that. And he started to had a photographer take pictures of this, right? These paid protesters. And they would do the same thing that is done today, where you guys will remember, when they were saying everybody was lined up around the block to get that one thing back in, 2019, 2020. Remember, everybody was lined around the block, right? And all the hospitals were fucking packed. You couldn't get in there. You guys remember all that shit, right? Same type of premise, right? So they use movie tricks, right, with this, and just change the angle from the way that they were taking the photos, right, to make just 20 people look like 200 people, right? If you're all panned in and shit like that, it looks like a sea of people, and all you can see is shoulders, right? Then they started printing this shit, Then they started printing this shit, in this opposition newspaper. And what it actually does when you do shit like this, is it for one, it's the programming, right? People see something in the newspaper and they automatically, back then the newspaper was television or, the internet now, right? They didn't believe that there was any fucking way that the news would lie, right? Just like today, people still believe that the news tells the truth, right? Which is crazy, but they did not believe that the news would lie. So when they seen this in the fucking paper, they seen this panned in photo of these people rallying against the Ayatollah, oh my God. And with this, article basically, smearing him, making all of these claims and shit like that, and saying that there was this growing unrest and people were ready to overthrow him and people wanted change, blah, blah, blah. And they continued to do this. And eventually what happened was that they overthrew his ass, right? They overthrew his ass, and they did it for under $1 million fucking dollars. So what happens when he goes back to America, it was such success that they decided, we're no longer our proxy wars and all of this. We're no longer going to, use bullets and bombs. We're no longer going to do it this way, right? We're going to use information. We're going to use propaganda. We're going to use psychological warfare tactics on people. And this is how we're going to overthrow people. And this is what you call soft coups, right? You've got violence and shit like that, right? Where, they go in, things blazing, to overthrow something, and then you've got these type of things, where bit by bit, drop by drop, they sway public opinion, they sway people's perception, and people start to believe it. And, if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes a truth. See, the number one method of mind control is repetition, by the way. That's why it's so important, for them to repeat over and over and over and over their talking points, right? That's what they're trying to do. That's the number one method of mind control is repetition. So when you watch the news and they're all saying the same ass shit, you're watching TV, they're all saying the same ass shit. When you turn on podcasts and you think that these are real people, which I think is fucking hilarious, you watch a person literally pop up overnight and all of a sudden they're on Joe Rogan. All of a sudden they've got hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, and it's like people are just so stupid. It's like, oh, they're not a shill, they're not a plant. Oh, okay. There's been people been doing this for decades that can't reach those numbers, because if you're not in the little club, they want to allow it, right? They want to allow it. The only ones that they allow are the people that parrot this shit. That's Mockingbird Media, right? That's to them Operation Mockingbird, right? Literally, the talking points being regurgitated over and over and over. It's like, and sorry, some people just will never be able to see through that nonsense. It's like, and it's because they have cognitive dissonance, just like people do when it comes to religion. They see like the stories of religions. I'm not trying to attack any particular religion. I'm not going to, actually. I feel like I'll take away from what I'm trying to say now. But I will say that with these religions, a lot of the religions of the world, it's the same stories, repackaged, retold over and over and over and over through thousands and thousands of years, through all these different cultures and continents and shit like that, right? The same gods, the same narratives. They may have different names, but it's the same archetypes, all of it, but everybody wants to believe that their version is the real version. Their version is the truth, and they're the one who is not deceived. It's cognitive dissonance. It's because they have an emotional attachment to it, right? See, and that's why they use things like neuro-linguistic programming as well, right? NLP, which, if somebody that actually uses NLP on a professional level, they're called a practitioner, right? They are literally a fucking wizard, right? A word wizard. That's what they are. They're speaking spells over your ass with words, right? And see, certain words, within the lexicon, within the collective psyche, the collective, consciousness, they invoke certain emotional responses. I'll give you just one example here. It's the word racist, right? Racist. Do you guys remember when Donald Trump, came onto the scene and they wanted to undermine his following and discredit him and all of that? What did they do? What did they do? They called him a racist. They said Donald Trump is a racist. He's a bigot. He's a womanizer, right? See, these are forms of neuro-linguistic programming. These words evoke a negative emotional response. Anytime you hear one of these words, for one, you're going to feel like this sense of disgust, right? You feel disgust, like, ew, racist. That word just makes you feel like everything you can think of in association with that word is negative. It's bad. Nobody wants to be a racist. Nobody likes a fucking racist, right? We all can't stand them. We think they're pieces of shit. And no matter what color we are, we're like, man, fuck somebody like that. That's what he is. Fuck him. Same thing, like a bigot, right? And a womanizer, a racist, right? I can't even say that one on here. But stuff like that, right? It's like it's evoking that fucking response, and it's like people hear it and it takes over them. It takes over them, right? And then see, once you get into your emotions, this is how this works as well, right? This is why trauma-based mind control is so powerful and so fucking effective, right? Because once we get into the emotional side of ourselves, the emotional part of our brain, right? The logical side turns off, right? So if I get you all butt hurt, by using particular words and phrases, you know, all of a sudden you're no longer listening to anything after what I said that triggered you, right? So newsflash, right? The racist Donald Trump comes on, you know, today and declares a new law. Da, da, da. It may be the best fucking law you've ever heard. It won't matter. It won't matter. And I'm not saying he's great or anything. I'm just saying I'm using him as an example because they use it a lot with the NLP. So it's like you won't hear anything after that. You'll hear that NLP word, right? That emotional response will be evoked. You know, you'll get all butthurt about it. And all of a sudden, you know, the reasoning, the logic, all that shit just turns completely fucking off. You heard nothing after, you know, that was said, you know. And this is how it works, you know. And that's why they, in the media especially, and the puppets in the podcast and all that will repeat these same talking points over and over and over. Because like I said, the number one method of mind control is repetition, right? And see, and this is why too, you know, the whole trauma-based mind control thing is so effective as well. And we're all victims of MK Ultra, whether we believe so or not. Yes, there are people that have been extremely victimized by it, right? To where they've had actual handlers. And it's usually you know, content creators, actors, media personalities, politicians, shit like that. People with influence. Usually they'll get the hands-on approach on those people, right? Because they have influence over a large number of people. So they want to make sure that they can affect how they're influencing those folks. And if they won't play ball, right, and influence people the way they want them to influence them, then they discredit them, character assassinate them. And if that doesn't work, then they actually, you know, get rid of them, you know, or, you know, deplatform them or whatever, right? We see it happen, you know, so many times. But see, the masses have been victimized by the trauma-based mind control as well. You know, like, see, this is crazy. See, the brain, like I said, human beings are by far, the human body is the most advanced piece of technology on the face of the fucking earth. Hands down, period. Right? So what our brain does whenever, you know, we have traumatic experiences, you know, whenever something hurts us or, you know, a traumatizing memory and, you know, shit like that, super, super pain, you know, like we can do one of two things. For one, we're, you know, whenever we go in shock from physical pain, right? That is literally the mind disconnecting from the body, right? That's your consciousness stepping outside of yourself because it knows that you need all of your faculties to be able to get you through whatever traumatizing experience you're going through, right? So you can stay alive until you can get fixed, right? Literally. So it's like the consciousness will literally separate itself. So you're in shock. You don't feel pain. You're not aware of any of it because that's, you know, a defense mechanism. And see, they've taken advantage of all of this, right? This is what, you know, all the fucking Nazis and, you know, Operation Paperclip and all this were doing with us, right? They were doing this, you know? So our brain will repress these things. You ever seen somebody that's had like really, really bad traumatic childhood experiences or been through something really traumatizing? See, the brain has a defense mechanism. It will repress it. You know, it files it away in the junk drawer. You know, it makes you forget it, right? It makes you forget it. So if you're constantly being bombarded, right, with negative images, abstract, ugly images at that, right? And they do that to pervert the mind and the way that we see things and what we call beauty and all of that, right? So the abstract, ugly art and all of that, but like horror movies, super sexually explicit shit, like all of this, right? This is all to program us in particular ways, you know, like in the whole version of consumerism. They use sex, right? Because they know that still at a biological level, we're all motivated through sexual reproduction, right? Like, we can't help it. It's programmed into us to reproduce, to keep the species going, right? So almost everything within us biologically boils down to sex. So, they'll hide, sexual symbolism and images in commercials, right? They'll have a girl like holding onto the blender like it's a dick or something, right? Something phallic, or, you know what I mean? Right. And they do this that way your brain goes into that, that response of like, ooh, sexual. And then all of a sudden, you feel like you need to buy that thing, right? You feel like you need to have it, right? Because you've been triggered, you've been programmed, right? By that symbolism. Same thing with like horror, right? Extreme horror and gore and being scared. And think about it, video games, all of it, which video games were originally created, and this is the crazy thing, right? Because when they were sending young men over to Vietnam, right, whenever they would get up face to face with one another, and think about this, this is once again how we were not made to lie to each other, right? And the subconscious, is always telling the truth, right? So we weren't made to harm each other either. We weren't made to unalive each other also, right? So when young men would look each other in the eye and they would get up face to face, they couldn't pull the fucking trigger, man. They couldn't do it. They couldn't hurt each other, So they created video games as a method of simulating warfare, right? That way it would just be like a triggered response. Then when they got into the field, they had practiced it in their mind and lived that until it had dulled their senses, right? And it became almost automatic, like an Olympic athlete runs, the same race over and over. That way they're ready for the race the day it comes, And it desensitized us to it. That way we were be able to do that. And think about all the children now and all of us who grew up, with video games and shit like that, where we were constantly simulating violence, constantly simulating warfare, constantly simulating this, right? Desensitizing us, dulling us to this, right? Conditioning us to this, right? All of it. And then think about, haunted houses and shit like that, where it's, this dark, scary situation using strobes and shit like that. And we know that certain types of light also alters the way that our brain and our mind works. That's why they use blue light and shit like that in your house. All the halogen lights and all this. The reason you can't use the old school light bulbs is because they want to use blue light. See, when they were, which I'll get to in a second, but when they were actually doing experiments on bulls, I believe, the CIA, to be able to control them remotely, right? And they implanted electrodes in the fucking thing's brain, and they were able to, and I believe it was Jolyon West that did this, the guy behind MK Ultra and all this. So he's able to fucking control these animals, right, with the electrodes. Well, they wanted to see if they could do it non-invasive. And the way they did the control through the electrodes was they were flashing signals, right, through the electrodes in the fucking animal's mind, in its brain, right, through implants. So they're I wonder if we could do this non-invasively and still be able to get the animal to behave the way we want it to. Guess what? They did. And you know how they did it? They did it through blue light, right? You just were able to flash the blue light and still get the same fucking response. You can take a super slow motion camera, right? Put it in your house in a room with the lights on, right? If you have, blue light, halogen lights and shit like that, right? The energy savers is what they call it, right? And I want you to turn it on and see what happens. What you're going to see when it's slowed down is that it is a constant strobing effect. Constant strobing effect. You think that they're giving off one consistent, constant beam of light, but they're not. They're flickering, faster than your brain and your eyes can even perceive it. And see, and it's been found, studies have found and shown that what it actually does is break concentration. It doesn't allow you to be able to concentrate. It also destroys sleeping patterns and sleeping habits, right? So when you're wondering like why you can't fucking sleep, why you can't concentrate, all of these different things, well, not only is the lights in your house this blue flickering light, well, your television is, your cell phone is, all of this stuff is, right? It's incredibly bad to you, and it also can put you into a more suggestive state as well. So when you're watching your commercials and shit like that, there you go, right? And people don't understand that this is how all of this shit works. Everything and it's like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do? Just not live, John? No. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. It's like understanding what's happening, what's going on, how it works, why it's being done, what is the desired result. That's what arms you against it. I'm not telling you to stop living your fucking life, We know that, music has a hypnotic quality to it, literally, right? You can literally, it's called syncopated beats, right? Syncopated beats. And they use these in rituals. So like whenever you're calling on spirits and seeing, isn't it crazy how all of this always goes back to the occult? Every bit of it, all of the brainwashing, mind control, all the evil shit just goes back to the occult, But these syncopated beats, right, they have found, like, think about this, like when they're beating drums and shit like that and chanting on a spirit and, invoking entities, it's a syncopated rhythm that they're using, It's a hypnotic rhythm, the same way to put you into a suggestive state. When you are literally dancing, that is your body getting into sync with the beat, with the rhythm, right? Your body is aligning with that frequency. You're following around the frequency. Same way that you can charm a snake, that's what the music's doing to you. You're just the snake in this situation, right? So when they have subliminal messages within the music, and like I said, with the backward masking thing, right? And these syncopated beats, which we all know that these, 432 hertz and all of that, they've changed the frequency of this to create distortion, right? To fuck with your biorhythm. Same way that 5th generation technology is not natural to the Earth's biosphere or our biorhythm. It puts us out of rhythm, out of frequency, out of tune, which doesn't allow us to operate, like at top capacity, at full speed. We can never really reach peak consciousness, We can't, because we're constantly being bombarded with these distorted frequencies, different forms of harmful radiation, contaminants, and think about all of this stuff in your food, the same thing, just poisoning your body, poisoning your food, your water. And then think about the air. You see these planes flying by day and night, cloaking the skies with all of this. They tell you it's fucking chaff and all this other nonsense, but it has metals in it. Aluminum, barium, strontium. And think about barium and aluminum. Baal. Baal. Right? The Canaanite god. They're dropping the Canaanite god on you. Literally. And see, this metal creates damage to the frontal lobe of the brain, right? So, and many people believe that this is responsible for fucking ADHD, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, juvenile diabetes, all of this shit. All these heavy metals and microplastics that are within our brain. You have to understand. Also, it allows you, and what it's doing is charging you too. Remember that we are an antenna, right? We are an antenna. So when you have these metals in you, what it's doing is turning you into an antenna for the frequency that's being emitted by, the fifth generation technology. See, the reason that they got to have I should have, my house is just right, literally about 50 feet over here. I live down in the smack dab middle of it. But there's a 5G tower right behind my fucking house. And the reason they look like they look and they have those repeaters all around them is because it's such a focused, frequency. It doesn't travel that far, right, at all. It doesn't travel very far. So, it has, and it's like I said, it's inorganic, it's unnatural to our biosphere. It's not found in nature, right? And it isn't in harmony, with the natural frequencies of Earth, right? Or consciousness at all. Okay. So the reason it has all those repeaters all the way around it, right? Those antennas, is to allow the signal to repeat. And if you look up, it's called IEEE, right? You look it up, they're actually sending signals, right? And it's got a literal IP address to it. And it's, all of us have our own biorhythm or IP address, basically. And that's what they're using, that particular address, in order to allow the repeaters to charge up and send that signal from tower to tower. So they're bouncing it off of your ass, literally, your consciousness, and then dropping those heavy metals. That way it comes within your body. And for one, it's clogging your natural antenna, right? Your antenna to God, your antenna to consciousness, to spirit. That's being destroyed. That's being destroyed. And remember what they were putting in everybody's bodies, all the graphene oxide and all that shit, right? Like, remember all that, people being contaminated with all that stuff, and it was magnetic in property. Remember, the magnetic pole of your body is your pineal gland. That's the magnetic pole of your body. That's like, like the magnetic north pole of you. See, everything works on a micro and a macro level, right? Like, we look up at the cosmos, it's just a reflection. The earth is just a reflection. It's just a mirror reflection, all the way from God down to the smallest cell. It's all reflecting. It's all the same thing. That's why, we see, what's called golden ratio, and the Fibonacci sequence and shit like that. It's showing you, it's the God code. This one programmed frequency, or signature, right? And God says he wrote his name on everything, right? And that's what it is. It's like his autograph on everything. It's like, it's what gives it life. And it all reflects back, It all works that way. And those metals, not only are they creating disruption within your nervous system and all of this, your biorhythms and your frequencies of yourself, they're amplifying your ability to connect to that fucking foul-ass, distorted fifth generation shit. That way you can be working with the repeaters to amplify that shit. It's like you got to really, really understand, what's taking place here on Earth. And people say, oh, when the, aliens and shit like that. And it's like, if you can't see that we've already been invaded and that we've already basically been conquered, then you're blind. This is absolutely an anti-human agenda. Absolutely an anti-human agenda. And do you know who I believe is responsible for it? And this is what's crazy, and this is where you lose people. And this is a sad part, because people separate religion and science and all of this. They believe that the two, can't be synonymous and that they're not one and the same. When, science is trying to give us the observable effects, or, to understand, consciousness and spirituality. And religion is trying to give us like the symbolic and archetypical, understanding of consciousness and reality, right? Spirit. right? So they both work hand in hand. They go hand in hand, but people think they can't, And it's like we were told very, very long time ago, they're called fallen angels, right? Fallen angels. There was something that came from outside of Earth to here, right? There was. And it wasn't good. It wasn't nice at all. Matter of fact, people say that, God is evil, the creator is evil. Well, if you look at why the deluge actually happened, why there was actually a flood, why we're actually destroyed, it was to get rid of them. Right? It was to get rid of them and all their fucking genetic experiments that they had created while they were here. And see, they created Nephilim, right? The giants, right? The gods, right? Demigods, that we see, like they were pharaohs and all this shit of old. The heroes of old, the men of renown, Gibborim, Nephilim, Raphaim, right? They have many different names. Matter of fact, if you want to see a pretty cool show, watch House of David. It gets into the whole David and Goliath thing. That was a Nephilim right there. They fought the Philistine, right? And the whole thing with the religions, right, that these people worship. And you got to think the beginning of civilization. And many people don't know this, nor do they believe this, because they've been programmed. Everybody talks about, the first people were the Egyptians, or they were in Africa, No, they were on the prime meridian. The prime meridian was the beginning of civilization, right? That's where things started. And what's crazy, there is, on the prime meridian, it's called Cydonia, right? And if you look at Mars, and this is fucking wild. The prime meridian of Mars has an area called Cydonia as well. That's where the face is on Mars, right? And the pyramids on Mars. Same shit. Matter of fact, you can see it mimics the megaliths or whatever, right? Mimic one another, right? You can overlay the ones that are in England and shit like that in that circle with the ones that are on Mars. It's absolutely fascinating to see, right? And see, on this prime meridian in Cydonia, right, they worship Sirius, right? See, matter of fact, when modern civilization, we didn't even know about the Sirius star, but the natives and shit in that area already knew about it 20 years before we even discover it, right? And see, and this is the dog star, the dog star, and the whole canine, right? This is where with the canine teeth, right? The fangs that we have and all of that, right? Canine, the dog star, and then, this gets into Anubis, right? The dog-headed god, right? Of the underworld and shit like that, right? So these were the Canaanites, the Canaanites. And these were the people in the Bible that were cursed, right? They were cursed, And these Canaanites are the very same fucking people that worship Moloch, Baal, right? The whole sacrifice and, the sacrificing of the effigy at Bohemian Grove and all of this, right? Same thing. And isn't it crazy that Bohemian Grove, located outside of San Francisco Redwood Forest, and they say that these giants and shit, that they used to hide in these trees and shit like that, like in the last giant trees of the world are right there. It's just crazy. And they cut down all these trees, and some people believe that that's what actually caused the flood, is when they cut down all the giant trees across the earth. And you can see, the stub, of where they cut these motherfuckers off all over the globe. When you cut a tree down, once its roots have tapped into the water, underneath the soil, water just flows up. So imagine cutting down giant ass trees. How much water would come flowing, right? That could literally flood all the lands, Just saying, that's one possible possible explanation, right? He said that they were destroyed. And remember, if God gives free will, it doesn't even mean that God necessarily destroyed the earth with the flood, right? He just didn't stop them from destroying it with the flood, right? Because they were, and according to the Anunnaki, right? And you think about Enuma Elish, Atrahasis, right? Epic of Gilgamesh, Enki's World Order, or Lost Book of Enki. Allegedly, the gods got tired of hearing mankind's noise, and that's why they wanted to destroy us. And when you understand the etymology of the word, what noise actually meant, remember, these were AI gods, by the way, just so you know. These were fucking AI gods, right? They were technological, right? They came down with technology, and I'll explain some of that in just a moment, right? The whole technology thing with them. Right? And isn't it funny how here we are today, all this time later, all the technology allegedly coming from, Roswell and crashed UFOs and, from aliens and shit like that. And now we're being enslaved by it once again. I'm just saying, I don't believe in coincidence. I don't. Right? But, they said they got tired of our noise, and see what noise actually translates into the etymology of the word was our consciousness, right? See, they were a hive mind, right? Like an AI. They were like a board, right? Like they were all one mind, so they could hear one another's thoughts. There was no separation between what they were thinking, And you think about, how a lot of extraterrestrials are being described as having telepathy and shit like that, right? So they were telepathic. They could hear each other's thoughts. Well, remember, they genetically altered us with their seed, and that's why they said, my seed shall not abide in man forever. And they altered and cut our telomeres, right? Which is what allows us the telomeres is what allows us to basically be immortal, right? Our telomeres replenish themselves and allows us to stay young. Well, it's literally been discovered, through science, that our telomeres appear to have been artificially soldered, right? Like something, altered our telomeres. There's no explanation for why our telomeres have been shortened. And guess what? Our telomeres give us no more than the lifespan of 120 years. How crazy is that, right? He said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever. They shall live no more than 120 years, which is crazy, right? Just the same way it's crazy that, God cursed the serpent to crawl on his belly and to eat the dust. Right? And we are made of the dust. So what is the serpent eating? Us. They're feeding off of us. And think about the Anunnaki. When they came here they created a slave race to mine gold. Right? Gold means spirit. Right? It's spirit. Think about, when God, in the last days, he cast his net, gathering his together, refining them by the fires of affliction, purifying their spirit like gold. Like gold. Right? Gold either translates into the heavens or the spirit. Right? So when they were mining gold, right, and they created a slave race, which were dark-skinned or black, right? It was a shadow. Right? It was a shadow. And you think about Genesis and what it says, right? We were made in the image of the Elohim, right? Image means a phantom, a projection, an illusion, right? A specter, an idol, right? It's a shadow, The human body is the shadow, right? It is a shadow of our soul, of our spirit, So that's the slave race. the physical slave race was created. That way they could harvest our spiritual essence by feeding off of our emotions, right? Stealing our energy. Have you ever thought about why coliseums and stadiums and shit like that are, shaped like giant fucking speakers and parabolic dishes and shit like that? And like have the ability to amplify fucking sound and frequency and vibration straight up into the ether, Have you ever thought about why we're completely fucking blind to the reality in which we live in? We see 0.00013% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. 97% of the universe has been undiscovered, meaning we don't see a fucking thing. Nothing around us, These extraterrestrials or entities could be chilling right here with us and we would have no clue. All they have to do is be in a different light spectrum and they'd be totally invisible to us. And we couldn't hear them either. We have very limited hearing. They could just speak in a lower fucking frequency than we hear or a higher frequency than we hear. We don't even see ultraviolet or infrared. Give me a break. We've been engineered that way, altered that way. Like cattle. We do the same thing. When we give chicken and cattle antibiotics and steroids and shit. We're doing the same thing to them. We're engineering them and making them better food. And that's what's happening to us. You ever wonder why in the Bible, whenever the cycles end, and judgment comes, right? That it's called a harvest. You harvest crops, dude. You harvest crops. Have you ever wondered why we have a fucking firmament that keeps us in here and we can't leave? It's like a two-way fucking mirror. Like we're in prison. Like they're watching us, but we can't watch them. And if you think about the gods of the pantheon and shit like this, and this is going to kind of, like I said, we were creating the image of the Elohim. Elohim means supreme magistrates, right? Supreme ones. It means stars, luminaries, heavenly hosts, right? The shining ones. Get it? That's why and those are the angels, the watchers. Notice that they're all just sitting up there, right? Watching, right? Or when you call them messengers, why is it a messenger? Because they're emitting a frequency down here. Think about the story of Pistis Sophia. In Yaldabaoth, the lion-headed serpent, right? He caused her to look down, right? And was devoured by her. So it's like we were tricked from our highest state in the spiritual realm, right? And trapped, trapped in matter. And we see them, isn't it funny? They call those the heavenly hosts, the luminaries and all of that, right? Those are the angels. So you would ask, like, well, what are the planets then, John? What are they? And why is there 7 chakras, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 days of the week, right? 7's a number of God, right? The 7 sons of Satan, the 7 main celestial bodies, right? All of that. Why? Why is that so significant? Well, I want you to think about what planet means. Planet's not the same as star. Planet means a wandering star. Like it really starts to make sense. A wandering star. These are the ones who wandered, right? They strayed. They fell. That's why they're the governors, the archons, which means Lord, right? Lords, right? The rulers of the reality. The rulers of the reality. They are the Well, my phone died. My phone died, so yeah. Hold on, let me turn off my TV over here. Hold on 1 second, guys. Yeah. I don't know if you guys can still. Let me know if you guys can still hear me and all that. My phone died, so hopefully we're still getting good signal. Not really. I don't know if you guys can still hear me and all that good shit. Yeah, my phone died, so um, I do want to ask everyone that is watching this. Hopefully, we're going to stop getting a little cut out here. Please consider donating and supporting to the channel. Um, I literally just got a couple of strikes on this channel, so I haven't been able to stream for a couple of weeks here. So I'm asking people to, consider supporting, donating. If you enjoy the content here, if you enjoy my videos, if you like the guests, if you like the live deep dives and all of that. Hopefully it's not glitching and cutting out too bad. I do apologize. I'm going to try to wrap it up here, but you can do that by going to paypal.me, the Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, or Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast. Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. I see she's like, we got a black screen here. Yeah, so I'm probably like about 150, $200 away from the monthly goal. I haven't been able to stream, and the month just started. So I do this with your guys' support, viewer powered, because we've been demonetized, as you can see. I mean, I'm constantly getting striked, getting slammed. So I'm constantly getting slammed by YouTube, fucking Facebook, TikTok, all of them, man. And what's crazy is like I got so many viral videos on these platforms, and it's like they still try to kick me off on all of them. So like it is what it is, right? It is what it is. What else, guys? Hold on here. Let me see if I can. And let me know if you guys can see me and hear me. So I bet it's glitching a little bit. Well, the links are paypal.me, the Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, and Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast. I put them at the very beginning of the chat, and I also have them in the description, and I'll pin them at the top of the comment section. I want to ask everybody, please, to hit the thumbs up if you're in the chat or you catch us on the flip side. Please share this link for me. That's the best way to support, is just by sharing it, helping it to get out there. That way new people can find it. Subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell to get all notifications. I'll be doing a lot more cool stuff. I got a lot more cool stuff coming. And follow me on Facebook, facebook.com, Best Damn Podcast. I think we're like over 22,000 followers there now. Instagram, Best Damn Podcast, and on X, The Real Best Damn, and TikTok, The Best Damn Podcast. We're doing really good on TikTok too. So, yeah, I'm sorry. It says, it's lagging, John. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can fix this, guys. We should get a little bit less lag now. So, yeah, I think we should be a little bit better. Hey, Amy VR, Kimberly, Christina, Lasia, Bailey. Sorry I haven't been able to really pay attention to the chat and stuff tonight, but yeah, and you know what? And tonight, if you watch this video, one thing I want you to do, is I want you to like consider just the things that were being said and consider the things that we're speaking about. I want you to look into the shit yourself. Don't take my fucking word for it. You don't have to take my word for it. I want you to, and don't listen to a goddamn AI chat bot. I swear, if I see one more fucking lazy fuckhead content creator, talking to AI, asking AI about, about the world, like they're going to get a real legit ass answer, like a fucking idiot, I'm gonna go crazy, man. And you guys, I don't know why you guys are supporting people like that. You could do that just the same. You could get on ChatGPT and ask a dumb question yourself. I see so many people doing this shit, and it's just a joke, man. It's like all these people that are popping up out of nowhere. I mentioned this one. Her name's Mspiracy, and I hate to clown her, man. She cranks out the content, but it is just fake. She's got filters that changes her appearance. She's reading from an AI script, and everybody, like, literally. So the AI is creating these fantasy ass stories, no bearing in reality, and she's speaking like the shit's fact. She's talking about fucking all this crazy wild nonsense and acting like it's fact. You can't check none of it yourself. You can't find none of it anywhere because AI wrote the script, and you can see her reading from the damn script as she's doing the video. That's what's crazy. And then AI is generating all the images. It's just fake. There's nothing authentic about it. And then I see a lot of these other content creators, they're riding off the back of AI too. One dude with like long hair, wears sunglasses. Hey, brother, transmission received. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, you goofball? What transmission, you fucking retard? You just ask ChatGPT. Why don't you use your own goddamn brain, your own spirit? And see, and this is why people are so spiritually fucking broke, so brain dead. Nobody has the wherewithal to do their own research. Nobody has the wherewithal to go within, and use their own intuition, their own brain. They're just not able to do it, man. That's what's wrong with society. They have no connection to God. They have no true intelligence. They don't value truth. They value entertainment. So I'll leave it at that. Don't trust AI, and don't trust these fuckers that are pushing it. Seriously, they're trying to make a buck. That's it. Nothing wrong with that, but don't present it as truth. Tell it what it is. It's fucking entertainment. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. And like I said, please donate, support, help me reach the monthly goal. PayPal.me, The Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast, and Patreon.com, Best Damn Podcast Official. Follow me, Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter, The Real Best Damn, and you can email me, TheRealBestDamnPodcast @gmail.com if you want to be a guest, anything like that. Yeah, so like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for all you guys do. All you guys that, support me and donate and all that shit, man. I'm so fucking grateful. It means a lot. Like I said, we got a couple of strikes. Ain't been able to stream. So the support right now means a lot. So thank you. I love all of you guys. I'll see you next time. Remember, Jesus is the truth, the way, and life. God bless you guys. Peace.